as well. Grace, unfortunately, is on another screening, so she will not be able to join us for the Q&A. I'll just ask one question off the start, and then I'll let you people ask questions. My understanding, John, is that this was a first-time screenplay. To me, it seems so fully formed and intricately plotted. How did you come across it, and what's the story behind you accessing this material and wanting to direct it?
So it's like a Hollywood fairy tale. The writer had nothing to do with Hollywood, was living nowhere near it. He's British, I'm sorry to have to tell you. So that makes two of us. A couple of British producers, a French studio financing it. I mean, that's all happenstance, really. So Johnny Pereira, who wrote the script, wrote it on his own, researched it at a distance, not something he could have done 20 years ago, obviously. Very film literate, very, very smart, had worked in a law firm for 3 years until he paid off his college debt, and then went to South Korea to teach in an elementary school so that he could take the time to write and figure out what he was doing. So the script came as a spec script. It's a long story, but I'll keep it very compressed. He had no foothold whatsoever in the industry. He had no representation, no management, no nothing. He sent the script out, having put it away for 6 months and not done anything with it. Didn't think it was necessarily worth showing to anybody, but sent it as an email to various producers' names. So this is an informed community here, whose names appeared on the blacklist as people who had optioned, scripts that hadn't necessarily yet been produced. Tabulated those and sent his email to all of those people, and got a call from a guy called Scott Carr, who you probably saw in the credits there, who was just starting up as a sort of would-be manager. Said, "I like your log line, send me the script." Read the script, said, "I like your script, let's Skype." He was in South Korea, obviously. Through that, Scott represented him. Then he got representation at UTA. The script was sent out as a sort of spec script, as a writing sample initially. Film Nation, who were one of the producers of the film, bought it, optioned it rather, when they thought, well, it's a pretty good writing sample, but maybe there's an interesting film here anyway. And that then came to me as a log line, not me alone. They sent it to quite a lot of places, and it's not interesting as to how I got the gig, but I did get the gig. And when I said I need to spend time with the writer, I need him to be in the same space as me, having no idea where he was, and they said, well, he's in South Korea. So I said, fine, I've never been to South Korea, I'll go there. But in fact, in the end, he came to me, and my hand was the first physical hand he had grasped that had anything to do with the industry at all. He hadn't met his manager, he hadn't met his representation, he hadn't met anybody, not the people who optioned his script. So it's a very, very, very rare story, and we then sat down for 6 months and started, evolving the script. But it was already a very, very strong read when I read it the first time.
So for aspiring screenwriters out there, you never know what can happen. Are there any questions from the audience?
What's he doing next? Plenty. Yeah, he has a television project
that he's developed, which has just landed in my inbox. He's done a script for Sony on a project. He's developing another project with a company called Seesaw Films, who made King's Speech, about the thalidomide issue, if you know what that is. And yeah, he's doing a lot of stuff.
Shameless plug, we're showing a documentary called Mr. Zawitsky on TV, where it's about him making a movie about the survivors of thalidomide and meeting the man who is... No, this is a John Zaritsky, Canadian documentary.
Oh, I know,
filmmaker.
yeah.
And he actually meets the son of the guy who owned the pharmacy that put thalidomide on the market,
Okay.
and interviews his son. So it's funny how certain subjects come full circle. Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes?
What was it like to work with such a great cast, and especially Mrs. Chastain?
You should ask this man this.
Well, I can say as an actor, it was a total dream to, you'd be sitting in your chair and you'd look over. We were in this tiny little room, and on this side would be Sam Waterston and John Lithgow talking about parties they'd been at the Public Theater in the 1970s for Joe Papp, and Mark Strong would be talking about A View from a Bridge, which he was going to win a Tony for, and you know, it was an incredible cast to be a part of. And I think the amazing thing, John had worked with Jessica on The Debt, so they already had a relationship. So you saw a real level of trust between the two of them from day one. And what I found in working in television and film is if number one on the call sheet is comfortable and not only an extraordinary talent, that really helps set the mood for everything. So Jessica, I didn't know really what to expect, because I've worked on films where the number one or number two on the film has been someone who is totally in their own world and is extremely focused, and you almost have no personal connection with. And you can't, as another worker, have that expectation. They're not there to be your friend, or I've done films where by the time you got to the end, you're not even sure if the person remembers your name and you've been there for 25 days. But in this case, Jessica had this incredible ability to make everybody comfortable. She knew everyone on the crew. Actors would be coming in for one day, and I can tell you, I know 80% of the actors in this movie, because it's just entirely populated with great Canadian actors in small parts. My friend's the doctor on the phone even. He won the Governor General's Award for playwriting, so there you go. He knows how to pick good people, but we really ended up with this kind of ensemble feel, even though it had such a high caliber of incredible actor in it. And so for us, it was a real pleasure to be included, but that's only really possible because this guy has this ability, and from the background he comes from, I think from the theater, it's evident that he really created this ensemble atmosphere where, you know, even though you were in a scene with Jessica or you were with Sam Waterston, which was a lot of my stuff, you felt like an equal partner in creating it. And I think that really helped in the feeling for the film.
There was a question in the back we might not be able to see because we're in the shadows.
Where did the character of Elizabeth Sloane, where did it come from? Was she modeled after someone?
Sorry, was Miss Sloane modeled after someone?
The character.
Yes, after the writer's mother.
Oh.
No kidding, but
Wow.
not the devious part of her personality. That's the mother's son. No, I mean, actually, all joking aside, I think the moment I heard that, because the producer, when I was negotiating to find time to spend with him before we started anything, I said, is there anything you can tell me about him? I was sort of reeling from the idea that he actually was teaching in an elementary school in South Korea, and that's where he'd written the movie. And they said, I think he's based quite a lot of the character on his mother. And the moment I heard that, I thought, that's a very, very, very good sign. And particularly given the character who was already halfway to what you see now by then. And I say that as a compliment to him, because I think every character in the film is rooted in something very real, right down to, you know, even the sort of one-line parts are somehow very vivid in the film and very real and very grounded. But that character is particularly, she could have been a machine, you know, the work that he and I did was very much about really what was going on with her and how to chart the transformation that happens to her during the course of the film.
From the back row to the front row.
Well, you mentioned that when you met this guy, the first thing you had to do was rewrite a bunch of the script.
No, not rewrite.
Or you changed some things? Was that because of your vision versus what he wrote?
No, I think it's a different thing. That's not quite the way I would characterize it. I think, a film has to evolve into its finished form. A film is not made by one person, certainly not just by the director. But the director is the person who has to drive it. And my particular method involves very intense collaboration with the writer to essentially fashion the film in script form before we start. But it's also true, it was a first script and a rather brilliant script, but a script that definitely had room to evolve in terms of what was going on, particularly, as I said, to do with her character and particularly to do with one aspect of the story, which we needn't go into in detail, but it was pretty significant. And also we were in the process of authenticating the film at a sort of political level, because there's so much you can do without any help. The internet will take you so far, but not that far. So, we essentially worked through the film and then brought it to a place where we felt we could, go out to market with it and see if we could find anybody who's prepared to pay for it. It's not like, right, this guy's written a brilliant script, now let me throw it out and rewrite it. That's not the process at all. I mean, the writer is my chief collaborator on anything I do, and it's got nothing to do with my wanting to invade their space. It's about me trying to understand the inside of their head and they're trying to understand the inside of mine. God help them.
I want to welcome Grace, by the way.
I just wanted to say that when John had us in lobbyist boot camp when we started, so we got to do a whole bunch of amazing research. And I remember when we had gone through the read-through, John would come by and he would say, you know what, you're wearing glasses, maybe we're gonna use that. And then we would bring up concerns, and then Johnny Pereira was sitting right beside John Madden, and he was on his computer and typing it in so that the changes, that some of the things that we talked about on that day, right into the script.
Yeah, we were working on the script right the way through the film, to be honest. I mean, partly because we were just making sure we had our shit together, if you excuse the expression.
There's one question I've got to ask you. In light of the election results in the United States, the fact that the film, joking aside, the fact that the film deals with the NRA, and the fact that your lead character is someone who refuses to lose, do you feel that the film plays a bit differently than you might have intended when you were shooting it?
Well, you don't intend for the film to play in a particular way. Obviously, it's about an incredibly passionately argued circumstance, at least the occasion for the film, which is the issue of responsible gun regulation, as I like to think of it. That we thought would be a provocative topic, and certainly fed into the kind of I made it as kind of target to try and release it this year, because I thought it would be a very prominent issue in the political debate, as if any policy issue was going to be part of the political debate in this catastrophic democratic process. And of course it turned out not to be the case, and actually what came to the fore was what the film is really about, which is political process and gender politics. Both those two things kind of leapt to the forefront of what the film is. Look, it's not one's job to do that. I didn't want to get behind the politics because I thought that might be an odd thing if we felt completely out of sync. Not that, of course, anything is ever going to change on that issue, and certainly not now, in the foreseeable future. But the film is an odd thing because it's not a polemic. We never framed the film as a polemic, and I never wanted it to be that. I have no business making a polemical argument about this because it's not my country, and I'm not part of the political process that creates that circumstance. But but I did think that it was a film that would shine a light on something, or hoped it would do that. You know, lo and behold, we've come out in perhaps a political landscape nobody could have foreseen, which echoes our own version of that 5 months earlier. And, you know, these are very parlous times. These are very challenging, serious political times, and we ought to look to what we believe in and what we care about and organize ourselves to try and change the landscape. And so the film, in my view, has become more urgent. You know, it's the story of somebody who, for reasons that are not entirely noble, but become significant morally by the end, immolates herself in the, you know, and radicalizes herself in order to create an effect, which is, of course, minuscule. You know, as her attorney says, congrats, you know, now people have to buy their weapons. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But that's just a demonstration of how insane this argument is. That, you know, how it is possible to get to the far side of a disgusting catastrophe like Sandy Hook, and there is no response whatsoever legislatively to that situation, is a scandal. And the film doesn't take anything quite as powerful as that as its topic, and it's working around that idea. But you know, and the film, as I said, I may sound polemical, but the film is not a polemic and not intended to be. It's intended to be a story about an individual in a political circumstance. But I still care about that. I hope other people do.
Unfortunately, we have a 9:30 movie that's lined up outside.
But ask a question anyway.
I'll take one more question. I don't know who to choose.
Karen.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. To the right.
I don't mean to take. Oh, sorry.
No, you go for it.
I didn't realize your hand was up.
Just one, sorry.
I don't mean to take away from the message you had on the movie, but at the end, did you ever toy with the idea that Ford could be there waiting for her to come out of prison?
Good God, no. It's not about who the girl ends up with. It's not that sort of movie.
All right, on that note, we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately. Thank you for coming. All your friends.
Yeah, she stands there and looks. Yeah, it's weird.